How's it going, everyone? Hope everyone had a great weekend. We are here with a rarity challenge, and we are back with chapter 9 and 10 of the Thieves of the Suns. Anyways, let's get to it.
Chapter 9, The Climb of Glass. Festival drums shook the city, like a heart under strain. Lanterns swayed from balconies, and the streets were full of faces turned upward. Faces softened by the sun's borrowed mercy, mouths full of blessing and song. It was a perfect noise for thieves, 1,000 voices to hide the single misstep that could ruin everything. They moved beneath the celebration's shadow. 3 figures carved from practiced quiet. The locksmith carried her tools like a priest carries relics. The guide wore the dust of the desert like armor. The shadow simply was an absence that ate lampglow. Jalen followed them last. The map folded and warm against his ribs. The whisper a constant ember at the edge of the sight. The outer wards, the locksmith murmured as they slipped into the tower's service stair, where carved grooves ran like veins. They've made them finer since the Lantern House. Crystal thread, tune the sound. I'll need silence and time. Time is what we don't have. The guide answered. The priests count more than men. They listen for the wrong rhythm, and they know it. He moved like a man carrying a road inside it, stepping not on stones, but on memory. I'll make them look where I want them to. The tower smelled of old lights and colder things. Stone that hadn't seen rain in 100 years. Their boots whispered up spirals of glass-polished stair, and with each flight the air grew thinner, as if the city's heat were being braided into the stone. Lamps and niches burned with suns smaller than the ones above, reflecting off mirror panels that curved the world into a dozen impossible rooms. They reached the first ward, a lattice of glass filaments strung across the doorway. Humming faint as a bee, the locksmith knelt, breathing slow, and set a shard she'd filched from the market against the nearest thread. The filament sang, a high, crystalline note like a bell inside a throat. But the shard answered with a different tone, and the string slid open like a seam. For a breath, they all held their own names in their mouths and stepped through. Mirrors began 2 flights up. The chamber of reflection was a maze of glass that multiplied their shapes until they could not know which face belonged to which body. Jalen's hand found the guide's arm. The guide's fingers curled around his wrist like a tether. The shadow moved ahead, and the mirrors swallowed her whole, then spat 100 versions of darkness back at them. Each reflection held a whisper, a promise, a lie, a memory that was almost true. Jalen thought he saw his mother's laugh on a shard of glass and nearly stumbled. Do not trust what you see, the locksmith hissed. Trust the sound of my pick. Her hands moved like prayers, coaxing a path from the glass labyrinth. The shadow silhouette flickered ahead, stepping between reflections as if the mirrors themselves were seams to be passed through. The priests walked in their measured rhythm above, footfalls like beads on string, and the tower answered, its wards tightened with the cadence of their chant. On the 3rd flight, a panel flared with light as if the tower had taken a breath. Somewhere a bell began to toll out of sync. The guide's jaw tightened. They heard something, he said softly. Someone is listening closer. They accelerated. The locksmith worked faster, the shard in her palm smoking where she had to force the note to bend. The shadow's presence thinned the space between them. Where light tried to catch the shadow, it yawned and went pale. Jalen felt something in the air, an impatience, like an animal sniffing the wind before a storm. The whisper had climbed with him all the way up, now bright as a coal against the back of his skull. Closer, closer, closer. At the 7th flight, the chamber opened to the mirrored hall. It was cathedral of glass, the world refracted into a million new suns. In the center, raised on a dais of carved crystal, the cage hung, a lattice of interwoven crystal bands, tiny facets catching the light into a trembling aureole. The lesser sun in the Lantern House had been a child's fist. This thing was a small moon suspended on invisible chains. For priests stood sentinel, their masks like polished river stones. Their chanting was a low machine now, synchronized so precisely that any foreign rhythm would rend its pattern. The air in the hall felt alive, listening. Jalen tasted them. His hands shook. The rules sat in his mind. No one touches the flame until all agree. But the map had taught him nothing for this moment. Plans evaporate when you stand inches from the prize. "We do it quick," he said, voice low, though no one could hear beyond the chant. "Locksmith, open the cage. Shadow, draw the eyes. Guide, watch the doors." He pointed and he shifted, rolls sliding into place like gears. The shadow stepped forward, and with the smallest movement, she let the light around her wrinkle. A priest's gaze snagged on that wrinkle and, as if waking from dream, he blinked. The others turned. For half a breath, the pattern stuttered. A single, terrible note, like a broken string, quivered through the hall. The locksmith took it. Her hands shook, but not with fear. The shard she used sang against the cage, and the crystal bands answered with noise that made the air crackle. The lock unthreaded like a spell. For a moment, the cage seemed to loosen its own mind, as if the crystal itself wanted to be undone. Then the sun leaned. Not a movement of body, but a pressure, a will. It pushed outward like a fist against the air. The priest's chant faltered into gasps. The guide cursed. Boots thundered in the tower beyond. Somewhere, bells began to peal in the air. The whisper became insistence, a chorus pressing in all at once. "Come, touch. You were chosen. You were born to hold me." It slid beneath skin, through sinew, an ache that made knees go weak and lungs greedy. Jalen's heart hammered, not with fear, but with something more dangerous. Longing wrapped in righteousness. The locksmith's tools slipped in her fingers. Her face changed, old hunger and new terror braided together. She breathed, half a plea, half a prayer. "No," Jalen said, the word a blade. He lunged, the map tumbling from under the stone, and his hand closed on her wrist. She looked at him, at the rule inked in their own blood and fear, and for a heartbeat there was a choice bright as the sun itself. Behind her, the shadow moved like a sigh. The guide reached, not for the locksmith but for the nearest priest, shoving him into the mirrored wall to break the rhythm cleanly. Shouts rose in the stair. Men's boots pounded. A priest's mask shattered under the guide's wrist, and the sound it made was a small bell that cut the air. The locksmith's teeth were bared. Her other hand trembled toward the cage. "If we don't, someone else will," she whispered, though whether she spoke of the city or of herself, Jalen could not tell. The whisper screamed now, not a suggestion but an imperative. The light burst forward, tasted. It licked the locksmith's fingertips where they grazed the crystal lattice. Her mouth opened in a sound that might have been a laugh or a cry. She jerked, and Jalen's grip tightened with everything he had, memory, fear. He could feel the heat at the edge of her skin, a brightness that wanted to swallow the world. Someone screamed. It could have been the priest. It could have been the locksmith. It could have been Jalen. For an instant the hall was nothing but noise and light, and a terrible knowledge that the rule had been broken whether by hand or by temptation. Then light, not the gentle glow of a lantern, but an immense spill, as if the cage had cracked and a new dawn had tried to pour itself out into the world. The mirrored walls multiplied the flare into 1,000 suns, and it was like standing inside a fire. Shapes went white with exposure. Jalen's skin felt as if the sun had kissed it. His lungs filled with a brightness that made thoughts scrape like glass. And somewhere beneath the roar was a single human voice, a sound sliced in and raw. The last thing he saw before the light took him wholly was the locksmith's face. Not triumphant, not free, but utterly awful, astonished, as if she had expected something else all her life and found the truth instead. Then the world folded into brilliance, and everything he had ever been burned to ash.
Loading new mag. Using equipment.
ChatGPT said, Chapter 10, the ash and the silence. When Jalen awoke, the world no longer knew its own light. The dawn had come wrong. White instead of gold, flat instead of warm. It bled through the city's smoke and pale, ghostly ribbons, touching nothing as though the sun itself feared what it saw. He lay on broken crystal. Each shard reflected a face he did not recognize. One blinded, one hollow, one still screaming. His hands were cut to ribbons, but he felt nothing except a ringing inside his skull that refused to fade. The tower was no longer whole. It listed like a ship with its keel torn out. A third of it had folded inward, molten glass hardened mid-collapse. Priests and guards swarmed below, their shouts faint as if heard underwater. The great cage was gone. Something else had gone too. He staggered upright, bones protested. The air still shimmered faintly with residual heat, like breath from a dying furnace. Where the sun had hung there was only a hollow glow. No orb, no change. Just a wound in the world that refused to close. The whisper was silent now. That terrified him more than anything. Below, the city was chaos. Bells still clanged, though their rhythm was broken and panicked. Civilians flooded the streets, staring upward at the tower's ruin. Some wept, some prayed. Others pointed to the sky, where a single strange mark had appeared beside the true sun, a faint shimmer, like a bruise in the heavens. He descended through the wreckage, careful not to draw eyes. The priests were already sealing the base, their white robes ash-stained, their chants hollow. Blasphemy, one murmured. The gods test us. Another, the flame devoured itself. No one spoke of thieves. No one dared. In an alley behind the spice quarter, he found the guide slumped against a wall. His skin burned in streaks where mirror glass had kissed him. One eye was bandaged with a strip of his own cloak. He looked up at Jalen without surprise. Thought you'd be asked, he rapped. Half the tower came down. Half of it stayed, Jalen said. It was the only answer that made sense. The guide coughed, spat blood, and laughed until it hurt. She's gone, then? The locksmith. Jalen didn't answer. He didn't need to. The guide nodded. I felt it the moment she touched it, like someone pulled a thread straight through me. And then, light, not burning exactly, just knowing. Jalen crouched beside him. The shadow vanished before it broke. Maybe she slipped between reflections. Maybe she didn't. He met Jalen's eyes. You saw it too, didn't you? Whatever that was, it wasn't sun. It was a door. Jalen didn't deny it. The wound in the air still burned behind his eyes. A door, or a mouth. Something had been freed or fed. They hid until nightfall. By then, the city's rulers had declared mourning. The tower was sealed by glass sentinels, its surviving priests swearing to rebuild. Patrols combed the streets for heretics, though no one knew what they saw. The sky remained scarred, one pale sun, one faint wound. When the crowds thinned, Jalen and the guide crossed the cistern. It smelled of damp ash now, the water filmed with dust. Their tools lay scattered, half melted, maps eaten by flame. The guide lit a candle. The light was weak, as if reluctant to show them their own faces. So what now, he asked. Jalen stared at the flicker until it steadied. We finished what we started. The guide frowned. You mean steal another? I mean understand what we did. Jalen's voice was rough, scraped thin by exhaustion. That light wasn't just power. It was will. It wanted out. And now it's free. The priests will call it sacrilege. The people will call it curse. But something has changed, and if we don't find the shape of it first... He didn't finish. He didn't need to. The candle guttered as if nodding. The guide leaned back against the wall. You're still hearing it, aren't you? Jalen hesitated. The whisper had not returned. Yet somewhere deep in the hollow space the suns had left behind, he felt a heartbeat that wasn't his. Faint waiting. Not yet, he said. But I will. Outside, the bells began again, slower now, uncertain. The city mourned its broken god, and beneath the sound, in the spaces between echoes, the air trembled once, just once, as though something vast had drawn breath.
Loading new mag. Cancel that.
Fire fail's done. Prices are back to normal.
15. Not bad, not bad.
Just moving in. New safe zone located. The gulag's locked down. Area's clear. Friendly loadout drops on the way. Yes. Top 3, don't let up now. Less than 5 are still standing. Next time
As
we'll
always,
take that
thanks
big
for watching, and I'll see you guys on Tuesday stream.